Another graph physics presentation. Low budget, sort of. Yeah, can't really be filling with details. Still running on the generator and such, but grateful for running water and occasional heat and some computer. Anyway, so Daftloday did make a video. It's kind of ironic. I pointed out how Daftloday would maybe save his idiotic reputation and be able to figure out the obvious. But of course he's retarded. I forgot. So of course he couldn't do that. He had to do exactly the opposite and be a stupid fuck. So, but I find it grotesquely entertaining. Because he's just so fucking wrong.
It's not evidence. There's no evidence that orthodox science
I have it sped up.
implies
Yes, I do.
to momentum or velocity.
Yes, there is. Okay, so we've done the baseball analogies, all kinds of analogies. So let's go to the drawing real quick. It's the same old argument as before. And in this case, I just don't think you can use relativity as your out because Michelson-Morley was way before Einstein. Well, not way before, but significantly before. Anyway, before enough. Let's put it that way. So this is just this just has to do with whether you're going to be rational or irrational, in my opinion. In terms of any understanding of physics at all. So it's like you either give up entirely on having like any hope of a rational notion of what conservation means in physics. Sorry about the less than perfect alignment. It really is a horrible alignment, but we'll just have to live with it. Once my hand's out of the way, it should. Why is this so bad? It really shouldn't be this bad. Like it's too much angle this way, but well, the angle won't kill us entirely. Alright, so the idea is you have something emitting a photon. So I'm going to draw it here. Alright, and the emitter is moving in a direction. So it's like a flashlight or anything you want to think of, or you can think of it as baseballs on a school bus. And when you launch it, you're launching it in a direction. And so the photon would leave, and it would go in the direction you launched it, straight. It wouldn't go this way, the speed of light, okay, and this way, the speed of light. So even though the emitter is moving, the photons wouldn't. So if something was moving, and it had a counterpart on the other side, so you were two people and you were both moving through space, let's say, if you're throwing a baseball, the baseball will have your momentum. It'll move actually in a diagonal direction, alright, and it'll actually move a greater speed. So it'll look like it's moving the same speed to you. So essentially, let's just say the two people are moving through space. So here you are moving. So this is t, 1, 2, 3. So you're moving through time. You're moving. He's moving. And the baseball will basically take this path. Oh yeah, that's the well house kicking in. And that's how the baseball will move between you as you're throwing it. It will actually move this line, and it will move at a velocity plus. It'll be a higher velocity than just this velocity. It won't be this plus this, but it'll be a higher velocity. And that's the truth. And you won't notice it because when you're catching the ball, all of the velocity in this direction you eliminate because you don't see it at all. So it's like you catching an egg and moving your hand to catch the egg. You're eliminating all of the impact. Well, the same thing happens with the baseball. You eliminate all the impact in one direction because you're moving in that direction. You're consuming that velocity, so it doesn't exist from your perspective, but it's there in the real world. So this is what happens with baseballs. And baseballs can have two velocities imposed on them and move a new v plus speed. Now we know the argument here is about whether the speed of light is a constant. And so their argument is basically, they're saying in this circumstance that, okay, well, they're sort of conceding light can't go faster, but then how can it possibly travel this greater distance? We'll know how it can if you just pretend it didn't, and you only count, well, it goes this way at the speed of light, and then we don't even pay any attention, we don't look, and it goes that way, and then it goes this way the speed of light, and we don't pay any attention, no one accounts for it, and it goes that way. And then it goes this way the speed of light, and then we don't look, we don't pay any attention, it gets that way for free. And it goes, so that's all they're doing. They're only counting this direction, and they're doing this direction for free. It's all free. Because we did this silly staircasey thing. We didn't do the actual line that requires you to either travel more distance, and you have to do it at a higher velocity. And if you can't go at a higher velocity, guess what? It takes you more time. Which means that when I throw the ball to the other guy, it comes up short if I use light. If I'm not throwing a baseball, the baseball stops. I mean, the light photon stops here. It doesn't get to him. He ends up moving on. And I miss him altogether. And my baseball goes flying out into space. That's what the true implications would be. Your target won't be at the right location. And that's what happens in the Michelson-Morley experiment. Photons don't act like baseballs. Photons can't have two momentums imposed on them. They can't do it. They can't do this fake staircase thing where you don't count motion in one direction. This is a physics argument. This is physics. They're pretending they can break these rules. They can travel a longer distance and say they did it at a constant speed, the speed of light. Well, if you did the distance, if you hit the other guy, the only way it's possible for you to hit him with a photon is you had to make the photons go faster. That's the only way you could play catch with a photon, is you have to make them go faster than the speed of light, because it's a longer distance they have to travel. And that's just a fact. Alright, so, well, we'll go back to the GIF soon. But let's play some more Daftloday. So, I mean, we've been over this in the relativity arguments, so it's the same argument, that they claim they can create some special frames that make the fact that this distance is longer, right? This distance is shorter than this distance. And they think, because they can do this framey crap, that they can avoid that fact. And they can't avoid it. It's a fact of the physical universe. These idiots. Pompous, arrogant, douchebag idiots.
Anybody who thinks standard orthodox science is saying that, namely DraftScience.
Right, so if he's going to put those words in my, if Daftloday is going to put those idiotic words in my mouth, okay, I'll agree to that, as long as you say standard physics thinks that GIF that we're arguing about, that GIF file, being accurate or inaccurate. If you're saying standard physics endorses that, then yes, I say standard physics is an imbecile who does think light can have two momentums. Clearly that's what's in that GIF. Light travels a longer distance, okay, and somehow it does it in the same amount of time, which is impossible unless you make light go faster than the speed of light.
Misunderstands orthodox science.
No, you misunderstand everything because you're stupid, and as you still self-describe, you're retarded.
Misunderstands high school.
You can't figure out basic social etiquette, like you can't figure out you're not supposed to shit on somebody's head. You can't figure out, oh, I can't spit in people's eye. Oh, I can't fart in their direction. You know, without that being considered rude. You're too stupid to figure any of that shit out. And yet you're going to argue about physics.
Mathematics, we have the concept of a vector. Concept of a vector as a...
Again, this means absolutely nothing. It means, the point is whether or not, like baseballs, photons can change their speed. when you force a baseball to do two things, like when you're throwing it back and forth on a school bus that's going 90 miles an hour, the baseball is effectively doing two things. Now it's taking one vector, okay, and it's the vector is a longer direction. And the baseball in the real world, if it was to be caught by somebody outside the bus, they would realize it had two velocities because the velocity would be higher. The baseball that hits the guy's glove on the outside of the bus, he will feel both directions. One of them won't be invisible to him, and he'll feel the actual velocity of the baseball, which will be higher. And that is the actual velocity of the baseball.
Applied to dynamics, physics, is a body in motion, has...
So it keeps using words like a body in motion when we're talking about fundamentally very different things physically. Material things versus force bits, right? I mean, a photon is a force bit. I think most physicists would concede a photon is not an atom. A photon is not a piece of matter. A photon is in some other category. And it certainly has the same characteristics as bent space, the magnetic forces, and the electrical forces, and the nuclear forces. Those are the characteristics that have something in common with, namely the speed of light and a constant speed. Those things that move at a constant speed are very different than things that don't move at a constant speed. So this idea that you can just say, we have a thing, okay, and everything's a thing. No. The two things obey different rules. You can give a baseball two velocities and they'll combine into a new velocity. You can't do that to a photon.
A direction of travel with a magnitude, and
yes, and nowhere have I suggested that photons do anything other than have a direction and a magnitude of a 1.
A direction. Okay? End of. A body has one...
A body. So again, you keep saying a body. Like I said, when there's just a huge difference between a material thing, material substances that can move it can move this slow or it can move this fast. Photons can't change their speed. It's not the same body.
Direction and one principal magnitude. Any body...
Again, a photon moves one speed. It can only have one magnitude. It can't change or vary its magnitude.
Or even any particle, even if it's massless, it can be said and noted that though north, east, south, west, though in the northeasterly direction, this particle might progress at 1 unit of light speed, its progress in the pure north direction is less than.
So this is where it makes no sense in light of the GIF, right? We know that in the GIF file, the photon moves exactly the same distance and speed as the up and down of the stationary control. So there's absolutely no difference in its distance covered. So if it's the same exact distance covered and light moves at a constant speed, then clearly if it has to hit a target that's moved to a new location, that line is a longer line. Clearly that's the hypotenuse line. That has to be the longer line. Not a smaller line, not the same line, it's a longer line. To restore this height at this angle, you have to add distance to restore the height. Not complicated.
Depending on the angle. And it has also can be noted that in some way it progresses in the easterly direction. But
so he's just reversing the problem. Instead of recognizing that we have a standard amount of distance we have to account for, which is the distance between the emitter and the mirror, that's the standard distance. And now we're going to change the location. And there's no way we can change the location without obliging the photon to travel a longer distance. So by making this the standard, he's making the other things look like they're variable. We can't vary the distance between the mirror and the emitter. So he's just completely cheating, again, the argument. There's no less distance between the emitter and the mirror at the start of the experiment. That was the standard, Dumbo.
At no point is it implied that it actually has two velocities, three velocities or more.
It has to if you're not going to allow it to move move faster than the speed of light. So again, this is just it's an inane argument to keep making over and over again. I'm saying that unless you give it two momentums, you can't get it to that point. I say it can only have one momentum. It can only move the speed of light. And to get to something further away, it has to travel more distance. It can't do this stuff for free. It can't do this motion for free, and then it only counts this motion. You can't do that. That's cheating.
Now then, second issue.
So this will be one of his most obvious of disgusting misparaphrases again of the argument. Just another complete propagandist perversion of the arguments that have been made. The ones that have been stressed by me over and over again. And here he is just going to completely butcher it with a straw man premise.
I mean, this is so basic. Any listeners of DraftScience who find him plausible, who understands these points, really ought to rethink their buying into his intuitive plausibility.
And it has nothing to do with intuition. It has to do with a whole lifetime of real-world experience in the real world. I actually played baseball. I actually understand that if I want to throw the baseball to somebody further away, I have to throw it harder. I understand those basic mechanics. Unlike you buffoons, you nerdy turds that spent your youth picking your nose and ass.
Arguments. Now then, in Mendham, part of his misunderstanding comes from a plain belief without evidence that light shot out of a moving laser or light source at 1 photon per instance will trail off because of it's a moving source.
Just an amazingly lie argument. I'm making exactly the opposite argument, that the photon travels straight. It doesn't trail anywhere. Yours is the one trailing to the future. You're the ones that say photons magically jump to the future and actually travel a longer distance by the way that doesn't count somehow. So, back to the drawing table. But it's just disgusting to say I'm the one arguing that somehow photons trail off. When I'm arguing, no, they do exactly what photons should do. They don't give a fuck about the movement of the emitter, and they move in a straight line. There was this thing where a guy, those debunkers of, whatever myths and what other not, the science debunker guys, so there was some myth about somebody being able to swing their arm and shoot bullets, bullets that have two momentums, that they could hook a bullet. And so they tested it and they said, no, you can't do that. And the real point comes down to is you can't move the gun faster than the escape velocity of the bullet. So from the bullet's perspective, the gun doesn't move, because the bullet leaves before any motion could have an effect on it. And there's other reasons also, but that's a primary reason, is the escape velocity of the bullet is so fast that it didn't notice you moved the gun. And the same thing is true for a photon. Anything that's moving is going to be moving substantially slower than the photon's escape velocity. So when it escapes, it didn't see this moving at all. Didn't see it. It's going in one fucking direction. That's it. A straight line in a fucking direction. So again, that's this bullshit that he draws is just such a lie. Because I've been over it and over again. My argument is photons travel straight lines. They don't travel hooks. They don't travel bends. So the proper way to draw it, to acknowledge what I've said repeatedly over and over and over again, is that here's your emitter, and here's the different instances of emitting of photons, okay, in a progressive direction, this one. the argument I'm making is the reason why Michelson-Morley can't work for a lot of reasons is that as soon as you put this in motion, the first photon goes straight. Now what happened to the mirror that was here? So here's mirrors here. You know, the mirror, so to speak, starts off here. This is the real mirror, okay? And at T1, this is where it is. Well, guess what? The photon doesn't get here at T1. And by the time the photon does get here, at say T4 or 3, this mirror is already here. So this photon never hit the mirror, it just went straight past it. Never had any contact with it. Can't possibly hit the mirror. Well, what about this photon? Well, the same thing applies. By the time this photon gets to this other side, the mirror will have moved 3 units over. It'll be over here. This photon isn't going to hit any mirror either. It's going to go right past it. So as soon as you put the experiment in real motion, that is any kind of fast motion, this experiment completely fails because all the photons miss the mirror. And the only way they could possibly hit it is you'd have to aim the photons. And if you aim them, then they have to take this longer path. You can just see it. See how much longer this line is than this line? And now you people are so stupid they're going to argue that this line is the same length as this line? You're really going to be that fucking idiotic? Damn. So anyway, no trailing off happens. That's a perceptual problem. You think it's trailing off because you don't realize you're moving. Well, we're saying that you do know you're moving. There's no trailing off beyond just a perceptual thing, but the photons moved in an exactly straight line. You're the one moving crooked, maybe. But there's no perception of anything other. You're the ones that are saying the photons somehow move the speed of light in this direction, and let's say this is going half the speed of light in this direction. You're giving it 2 momentums, and you don't account for this one at all. This one takes 0 time. This one takes the speed of light time. This one takes 0. No time at all. You can move in that direction all you want. You could go 5 times the speed of light in the other direction, and somehow it just doesn't count. Because it's not, physics doesn't have to account for anything. It doesn't have to be conservative. So there's no conservation in any of this bullshit he's talking.
Right? Now, this violates, he says there's no evidence, blah, 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 to suggest otherwise. No, there is evidence because we have evidence and belief in conservation.
Okay, so he thinks his belief in conservation, like I just said, I'm the one conserving momentum. I'm the one that's keeping the photons moving the speed of light, not twice the speed of light. I'm not giving anything free velocities. I'm the one obeying conservation. So, and frankly, to write the word conservation doesn't provide evidence. So I said there's no evidence of your theory that photons magically move with the thing shooting them, that the gun can hook the photon, that you can give the photon 2 momentums by just moving the flashlight this way. I can make the beam of light go this way. All I have to do is move the flashlight, and the beam doesn't come up straight anymore. It goes over there. It goes to the future. Just move the flashlight, went to the future. That's their fucking theory. That's how fucking stupid this conversation is. They believe that happens. The faster I move this flashlight, the further into the future the photons magically go. Sorry for the noise.
Momentum. Now he thinks this is conservation of momentum. But that means he doesn't understand what orthodox science means.
So just understand, my drawing, straight lines, that's conservation. Yes, I'm the one conserving the speed of light and conserving the direction of the photons. You're the ones breaking the direction, having them go into the future, and allowing them to go more distance at a speed greater than the speed of light.
By conservation of momentum. You can call that conservation of bullets. Yes, there's no bullets lost, but that's the count of bullets. It's not count of momentum.
We're not counting the bullets, we're counting their direction and their speed. And I'm the one accounting for it without giving them any free movement. I'm not allowing them to move one way for free, and the other way I only count the one way they go, as done in the GIF file. We only count this direction. We don't count this. So we just do a staircase. We do a jagged line. We go this way and we count it. Don't count this. We count this. We don't count this. We count this. We don't count this. That's all they did. That's all it is. It's complete nonsense. It has anything to do with conservation or obeying any rational rules of logic. It's illogical rubbish.
So with belief and good reason to believe in the conservation of momentum, from the spaceship, the moving spaceship reference frame, we believe light to appear to travel across. Of course.
He says we appears to travel across. That's because you're both moving. So that's the two people moving thing again. And yeah, you're not going to see your movement. When you're throwing the ball back and forth, you're not going to see your movement. But it actually will be that the thing does travel the crooked line. And it will, if it's a material thing, have to have a greater velocity to make it. So if it is a baseball, you have to give it more velocity to be able to make it. It doesn't make it without going a faster speed relative to a fixed point that isn't moving. And that's just a fact. But we know a photon doesn't do that. So clearly they're saying that in their special frames, they can make a photon go faster than the speed of light. Clearly they're saying it.
From the reference frame of an observer, that means, in a sense, he's seeing the moments of time of the source, that the photons are carrying with them momentum from the spaceship.
That's what you're saying. Forward momentum to meet the mirror over here, and it can't meet it where you would like to make it reflect, even if you aimed it, because oh yeah, it can't catch up to it there. It's going to come up short. So it has to be all the way over here. You have to aim at the mirror all the way over here. That's the only mirror you can hit at the speed of light. Shooting photons at the speed of light from that location, the only way you can get it to the forward location at the speed of light is you have to hit one that's 4 time units away. That's right, 4.
They're still only ever going the speed of light. So, but this is from a different reference frame.
It doesn't matter. Clearly you can see the line. It's the hypotenuse of two vectors. It clearly has to go faster to complete that line in the same amount of time. It can't otherwise do it because the line is a longer distance. Fact.
Now the trouble is, Mendham can't keep track and doesn't understand when one reference frame is being referred to, the truths therein about that reference frame, and the truths therein.
Yeah, I don't believe reference frames is a rational way to discuss anything. So you're just playing a game with yourself, okay, pretending that a reference frame allows you to say things aren't really physically happening. Just like the baseball example. We're on the bus, it's moving 90 miles an hour, we're throwing the baseball back and forth. We see the baseball traveling a straight line between us back and forth. But rationally we can know that of course the baseball's moving the diagonal, okay, as I throw it what seems to be straight across isn't straight across. It's actually because you're moving forward at 90 miles an hour and the ball's actually going to you at a future location. So I have imparted both velocities onto the baseball. Not only the velocity of the bus, but I've also given it a new velocity, and the extra speed is in the baseball. It's actually going faster than it would if the bus was stationary and we're throwing it back and forth. The baseball, when we're moving, is actually going faster, and you can test it by just putting somebody, just you missing the baseball. I'll throw it to you when the bus is stationary at the constant speed. You miss it and let somebody outside the bus catch it. And we'll do the same thing when the bus is moving. And the person catching the baseball will catch a baseball going much faster when we're moving. Now, we didn't see it because it's invisible to our perception because we're both moving. And so our glove automatically is compensating for the other movement. It's automatically doing the egg catch. And so everything looks like it doesn't have any momentum in that direction. but it did. The momentum was real. I throw something at 90 miles an hour at you. At the very same instant you move away from me at 90 miles an hour, you'll see the thing that you know I threw at 90 miles an hour not moving. And if I throw it at 91 miles an hour and you move away at 90 miles an hour, you'll see it just move 1 mile an hour towards you. You think you're seeing the truth? Do you think it's actually just moving 1 mile an hour? Or do you know, oh, of course, it's moving 91 miles an hour? I mean, this is fucking grammar school kids can understand why you can't break the rules the way you're breaking them.
About a different reference frame, and he doesn't understand how special relativity reconciles these truths.
So again, this is an experiment done before special relativity ever was announced. Michelson-Morley. So you're saying Michelson-Morley already knew about special relativity. And so they knew about this special property that they don't have to account for the forward motion of photons. They can just worry about the horizontal motion. They don't have to worry about the vertical or vice versa. They can give it two momentums, and one of them counts and one of them doesn't. They knew they could cheat.
With conservation of momentum and without paradox, accepting that something has to give, and it's both, well, something, both time and measured distances become dependent upon the viewpoint.
Yeah, become some kind of relative crap where you forget about the rational truth. So again, let's just go back to I've already drawn it. I mean, it's so simple. I got to keep redrawing the same exact images over and over again? I mean, this line is obviously a longer line than this line. I have to make a substantial argument to defend that truth, and that you can't travel this line in the same time it takes this line using a photon. It's not possible. And again, if you really did the experiment, you obviously wouldn't be aiming your photons for a moving mirror. So you wouldn't even have them going the right direction to have any chance to hit this. But again, don't you people understand that this location, they've placed in their GIF this location that they say this is where the photon reflects off the mirror. Well, if you do the math, no, this is the vector line. I drew it with these little lines just to point out the differences. So we know exactly how far it has to be. And it comes up short. See? Line number 6 ends up here. Line number 6 is short. So you can't hit this mirror when it's here. When the mirror's here, your photon doesn't reach it. When the mirror is here, okay, in this location, the photon isn't there yet. And the only place the photon at the speed of light you can actually hit the mirror is when the mirror is here, at time 4. That's when you can hit it at the speed of light. And then you do the same thing going this way, and that would be 8 units of time. And because you move those 8 units at a slower amount of time it's taken you, it comes out to 10 and 3/4 time units. The same exact time units it takes to do the forward. I mean, this is all they're doing. This is it. Count this, don't count this. Count this, don't count this. Count this, don't count this. Count this, don't count that. They're just pretending you can go forward in time and you didn't need to travel any distance to do it. You can just magically move into the future and it's for free. You didn't have to walk, or you didn't have to run, you didn't have to move at all. You got it for free. No time involved at all. Free distance. That's just such bullshit. I mean, I shouldn't have to argue this. This is just so fucking idiotic.
And the measurer in the viewpoint. There's no evidence to suggest, if I haven't said it, that science says anything other than what I've iterated. And there's no evidence.
Okay, so again, that science has said anything other than what I've iterated. What did he iterate? The photon gets to go into the future for free. he's mischaracterized my argument as being photons trailing off, which isn't my argument. They go straight. Okay? And he's the one with the idea that photons move into the future for free. They can travel longer distances in the same amount of time. They can move faster than the speed of light. Clearly, that's the implication of what he's saying.
To suggest and abandon the conservation of momentum. In fact, it's fine to say you're doing it.
So again, another lie, just a grotesque lie. I've abandoned no such thing. There's no abandonment of the rules of the consistency of the speed of light or the consistency of the relationship between distance and velocity. I'm not breaking any rules of motion at all here. He is. This lying sack of fat douchebag is the one who's violating the rules of the fact that photons do not care about their emitter's movement. The emitter can be doing anything, any kind of funny dance, and it just doesn't matter to a photon. A photon goes just like a bullet out of a gun. It goes at the moment of explosion. It leaves, and it doesn't really know if the gun was moving or not. It just couldn't care less because it moves so fast it already gone. It can't sense any motion.
But at least be open and admit that you are abandoning the orthodox conservation.
So again, just such a liar. The orthodox non-conservation. You're the ones who are not conserving the speed of light. You're the ones saying the photon can travel. The tangential, the hypotenuse of the triangle is somehow the shorter line. You're the ones who have made the hypotenuse shorter. You're saying you can add these two lines, you could do their square root, and somehow you get less on the hypotenuse when it's always going to be bigger. So you're the ones who completely lying about what the circumstance is.
Momentum.
I mean, two velocities are in opposite perpendicular directions. Obviously, you can make a triangle with a smaller angle. But obviously, to be different directions, they have to be 9 degrees.
And that would be a game stopper, a job stopper. With most physicists, they'd be going, oh, I don't want to talk to somebody who's throwing out.
Alright, so again, I'm not throwing out conservation. Where have I thrown out conservation in this simple argument? The photon moves in a straight line. The photon obeys time restraints about distance over the speed of light. It can't travel extra distance without accounting for it. Where have I broken conservation? You're the ones pretending this is how things can move. I get to go this way and we count it. When I go this way, we don't count it. When I go this way, we count it. When we go this way, we don't count it. When I go this way, we count it. That's what you're doing. You're saying that's conservational. That's cheating. That's bullshit. That's nonsense. It can't happen that way in the real world, and it doesn't happen that way in the real world. You're the conservation breakers.
Conservation of momentum. I suppose, as well, right? This so-called reverse science that he has it, that we make an observation and then we make the math fit. Science isn't predictive. Well, it is true that the predictive elements of science, sometimes this is the nature of it.
Yeah, so he's conceding that sometimes this is the nature of it. Alright, and his examples of when it isn't the nature, just get a load of these examples.
But the hypotheses and math which gave prediction to look up Feynman's lecture on finding the omega plus 3 or something, yeah?
Yeah, the omega plus 3, yeah. Isn't that, yeah? Remember when they took the pictures of the omega plus 3, yeah? So that's proof. They predicted something mathematically that we found a real physical representation of. Oh, wait a minute, that didn't happen. They theoretically predicted something, and then they theoretically predicted its existence. Because, frankly, they don't really have any evidence that it really exists. All they have is indirect notions or an idea that maybe it could possibly exist. Especially in insanely obtuse mathematics. And so, instead of showing me a prediction like, predicting the manufacture of a lens, or predicting something of real practical reality, he's just going to give me predictions of, look, they predicted the gluey quark. They predicted the Higgs boson. Do you think there really is such a bullshit thing? Well, then you're silly.
That was a prediction.
Look up. They predicted gravitational waves, and then they found them, and they weren't even the ones Einstein predicted, by the way. So they keep saying Einstein's gravity waves when they don't resemble Einstein's gravity waves at all, because Einstein's gravity waves weren't created by converting matter into bent space, for fuck's sake. And so you think they really did find them. You think the evidence of their find is so substantial that it validates their prediction. I'd say it's so far from being anything called a proof of the prediction. The finding is just as obtuse as the character of the prediction. The character of the prediction is just as weak as the evidence of the thing they predicted existing.
The particle physics, the prediction based on the group theory symmetries of quarks, yeah, and then we went out and found the.
Yeah, they found the quarks. You say that quarks are something real that happen in the real mechanics of atoms, that atoms are full of these little quark things, and that they're just not a manifestation of throwing a bunch of energy into an atom and you get little bits that break off, and you can name the little bits if you want to. You know, hunk, piece, big bent thing, little bent thing. I mean, you could do that. You can smash two cars together and you could name the hunks of stuff that fly off, like big hunk, little hunk. And I'm sure if you smash 1,000,000 cars, all of them will have things called big hunk and little hunk. You people are ridiculous.
Quarks, top quark, being elusive for a long while. Then we had the 1960s prediction of the Higgs mechanism and particle, yeah? And I'm not a physicist, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't. They didn't predict it. They noticed they have to find some excuse because their model doesn't add up. There's not enough pieces. So they said, well, there must be another piece, and then they went out and made one. If you think they found something and didn't make it, well, go ahead and be as deluded and daydreamy as you want about what the reality is. But if you think that's hard evidence of the predictiveness of your science, then you're just making my point for me again. Again, preposterous exaggerations about the strength of your evidence. Your evidence of bent space is weak. Your evidence of gravitational lensing is weak. Your evidence that photons obey the Heisenberg law is weak. You have Huygens, weak. All you have is weak evidence for all this shit, and then this theoretical crap is even weaker. Dark energy, dark matter. You don't have hard evidence for any of this crap. And here you are selling it like, oh, it's so predictive, it proved itself. It proved nothing. It's like hobgoblins predicting the existence of pixies. It's nonsense.
I'm just a really enthusiastic amateur, mathematically trained.
Yeah, Borgite. A silly, sappy Borgite. A frickin' up the asser of the people who basically broke anything called the scientific method. Fuck repeatable experiments. Fuck the notion of any kind of consistency in these principles you apply. Huygens here, don't Huygens there, who cares? Heisenberg here, no Heisenberg here. Photons interact with each other here, photons don't interact with each other there. Let's just change the rules anytime we want to suit the experiment we're particularly doing. Let's just say the rules can be so flexible. Yes, photons create wave packets of probability, but not when there's a whole bunch of photons, because then they don't need to interact with themselves, they can interact with the other fellas. I mean, you just make this shit up.
Lay physicist, if you could stretch it that far, right? And that's off the top of my head, clearly contrary to DraftScience's paradigm and worldview about what science is.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, they obviously, I'll just say it again. They go this way, they count it. They go this way, don't count it. This way, they count it. Go this way, don't count it. Go this way, count it. Go this way, don't count it. That's good science. No, that's lying.
On other videos, I'm sure I've extended that list. I've discussed and explained this to him before, but I've never framed it in the sense that there's no evidence to suggest orthodox science is suggesting that there's two momentums of something.
Okay, so again, I'll just point out the evidence is they're saying they can go the line into the future, which has to be a longer line. This line has to be longer than this line, and they can say they can do it in the same speed. They can do this distance in the same speed they did this distance. That's what they're arguing. It breaks the conservation of the speed of light. It's right in your face obvious. So there's nothing more to say. This guy is just a liar for the liars.
Yeah, not two actual momentums. There's always components of things. I even got DraftScience to admit that I could point the laser. He would agree that I could point the laser in this direction.
And I agreed that it still can't hit the target where the target's going to be. And I stated it. It's going to fall short. And you can't make it get there except by your cheat. You're just going to argue, well, that's where we saw it. Because see, we're time dilated, and so we're seeing everything else moving slower, so the light can now be going faster. I mean, you come up with these idiotic notions that, yeah, I can't prove in the real world that shit doesn't happen, but I don't think it happens, okay? I don't think light photons automatically know, I can't go straight, I'm supposed to go into the future, so I automatically go this way so the light from this flashlight, right, this is their argument, that when I move the flashlight, the photons that come out know I have to go this way. So if I move the flashlight half the speed of light this way, going that way, the photons automatically know to go this way. They don't come out going straight up. No, they go that way. Yeah, I can't prove that doesn't happen, but I know it doesn't happen. Because I know it's made up shit. It's fucking relativity glue. It's bullshit.
And then there could be a reference frame wherein we would see, yeah, but the lesson wasn't learned.
There's no lesson. Why would I be an idiot and a retard? Why would I follow a retard? So, way to go. Misparaphrases again. So again, just point out this hideous drawing. This isn't an honest fucking conversation any way whatsoever. I've never drawn the photons doing this. Ever, ever, ever. I've only pointed out that if they go out in a straight line and the spaceship is moving, it's going to look like to the people in the spaceship that the photons ended up landing back here. But they're not going to take this idiotic path. They're not going to turn this way. They're going to move in a straight line and end up over there. But the straight line is going to be at the speed of light, not something faster than the speed of light. So, God, these people are just such despicable liars. Ugh, disgusting. Alright, so, done my job, I think. I don't think it's, is it worth checking the comments? Ugh. That's not comments. Where's the comments? Oh, there they are. So, I mean, I could play the animated GIF, but I really don't have time to do that tonight, so maybe we can do that tomorrow. I'll just show you again how this is all such a crock of fucking lies. Not the track of the fuckers. Cool the fans, okay? I don't know what that means. John, asshole, Walker. I mean, you type crap comments and you give me advice. The first advice I give you, my name is spelled Garry. And I really didn't give you a permission to be that familiar. You can call me Daft if you want, but I'm not gonna, I'm not playing with you fucking cunts. Yeah, talk out of both sides of your face, why don't you? Let's see, so Mike Farrell's arguing with this guy. Hi Gary, good to hear you braving the adverse weather conditions. The GIF argument seems a bit strange to me. This channel, I think, fundamentally is making an argument for physics. So all personal crap aside, the argument being made is about physical events. I don't know what that means. Being measured in some way, hence in terms physics. I don't know if this has anything to do with measurement per se. It has to do with whether or not they're accurately drawing the reality. They're not measuring it. They can't even draw it right. The counter argument is a mathematical prediction inputted, I don't know what that means, into a computer or simulation into a watchable animation. Yes, and my point was that quite obviously they didn't account for the extra distance the photon has to travel, because the distance, the height distance, is exactly the same length as the length distance. How can you go, how can you do the A, okay? How can the A be the same height, okay, as the I? It's not possible. You can't make the length of the line on the A the same length as the length of the I. Fucking A. Whatever. Simulated. Okay. Hope you can all see that the counter argument isn't presenting anything in the way of physical evidence based on real physical events. Yes, by the sound of it, you made us morons a cartoon. You made us morons a cartoon. They drew something not representing physical reality. Yes, that's what they drew. Alright, so I'm not going to bother with Albert now. I'll get to him later. I mean, I'll take a screenshot of the stupid animation, and I'll show you exactly that this is all they're doing. We count this, we don't count this. We count this, we don't count this. We count this, we don't count that. All the motion forward is not counted as taking any time whatsoever. And all the motion forward goes at the speed of light. So all they're doing is exactly the same thing as the stationary photon. They're not accounting for the fact that moving this way takes time. It's like I'm jumping up and down, and the obligation is I have to get over there. You can't understand that I can't do both. If I'm jumping up and down as fast as I can, the speed of light, that I can't somehow go that way, alright, and maintain the speed of light bounce. It can't happen. The price has to be, I have to lose to be able to do that. Or I'm not going to make it when you want me there. It's going to take me longer. It can't be done. Like I said, I'm already going as fast as I can. I'm going the speed of light. So you have to make me go faster to do it. And it can't be done. There's no way to hit the mirror at that location. It just can't happen at the speed of light. It can't happen. Alright, so till next time and such.